Hey, welcome to your weekly corner Späti. It is me, Ciarán. I'm joined by Uma.
Hello.
And Nick.
Hello.
And we have returning guest, Séamus Malekafzali. Hey, Séamus, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah. If anyone wants to hear me fuck up Séamus's last name twice, you can go back to the old episode. I'm going to remind people that I did that.
Yeah, you listened and you learned, and that's all that matters.
I am acknowledging my past crimes.
You kept the episode up so that then people can acknowledge your crimes and that you can then learn from it. It's perfectly fine.
People digging up my old tweets, etc.
Yeah.
So today we wanted to talk about like Turkey, Israel, Syria. This kind of like I'm not going to pretend I actually know what's going on. I just know that stuff is definitely going on and it needs to be talked about. And Nick is probably going to lead us through that. But first, I have found a story from 2019 that I'm surprised we didn't talk about at the time because it is perfectly up our alley. And Séamus, having you on for this is also there's a slight tangential connection. I'm gonna Are you familiar with the Belgian-Israeli billionaire Ehud Ayer Lioniado? Is that name?
I can't understand the name, to be perfectly honest. But
that's fair.
I don't believe I have. No.
Excellent.
Please explain.
All right. So.
Yeah. How did we not talk about this actually?
Okay. This is reported in the Jewish Chronicle. A Belgian-Israeli billionaire has died while undergoing penis enlargement surgery. With his company describing him as a visionary businessman.
I do remember this.
Yes.
Didn't this happen? I think this might have happened in Manhattan. That's where I am right now.
New York, baby.
Yeah. It was in am I correct that it was in like an underground like penis enlargement clinic?
If he's a millionaire, it wouldn't be underground.
Oh no!
I don't think they advertised like on the side of the thing that it's a penis enlargement clinic.
Yeah. I'm heading down to Jacob's penis clinic.
You know, he did. You know what he did do? He clicked on one of those ads that you get that's just like, make your dick this much bigger, and he's like, well, and then he just leads him to, and then you know what it is? It's the substance for men. He then goes to this undisclosed location.
Just the substance movie again, just gender swapped for just penis enlargement surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not New York. This took place at a private French clinic.
Okay, interesting. Am I thinking of another man who died in a penis enlargement clinic here in Manhattan?
Probably.
I think there's so many of them. It's like all the women with like BBLs.
This is like. The thing that's the most striking to me is how is this the result of this surgery going wrong? Because, like, sure, if I go into a penis enlargement surgery, I'm like, okay, worst case scenario, my penis is fucked up. I didn't think death was on the table.
Sepsis, no? Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Just classic surgery. At that point, though, it's kind of insulting that everyone's telling you what type of surgery it was. If it's just a generic surgery complication.
Sorry. Penis enlargement sepsis is a gore grind band. Like
my favorite Cannibal Corpse album.
Yeah, exactly.
They have like the medical examiner coming out and being like, yeah, he was 3 inches and he could have been satisfied with that. But he had to go and try and get himself killed.
This is like number 2 dumb rich person way to die after a helicopter crash.
No. Well, I mean, helicopter crash is more likely.
Apparently not. Apparently, like I've awakened memories of this story occurring to other people in Séamus and Uma's mind. So this is apparently just in the zeitgeist. My favorite detail of the story. All right, so like he was the owner of a company called Omega Diamonds.
Jesus Christ.
And after the surgery was renamed Sigma Diamonds, but that never came to pass. which was an Antwerp-based business, so, shipping, all that kind of good stuff. He also ran a diamond pricing consultancy, which is just pure evil. And he also was the owner and sold the world's most expensive diamond, the Blue Moon of Josephine, to a Hong Kong billionaire, and convicted felon, a Joseph Lau Luang Hong. Yeah. So the best part of the story, though, was that he passes away March 8th, 2019.
On International Women's Day.
It's revenge. It was our revenge.
Yeah.
Happy Frauenkampf tag, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, just 360, just like, of his female surgeon, just 360 no-scoped his dong.
That has, but hang on, sorry, that has to be like a thing, like how like loads of hotels don't have like a 13th floor. There has to be like, you cannot get penis enlargement surgery on Women's Day. That's a bad sign.
It's like you can't get any of your sacraments in the Catholic Church during Lent.
Yeah, sure, that also,
which we're in right now. So
hold on, I have to disagree. How is it against the spirit of International Women's Day to undergo a surgical operation in order to make women happy?
Oh, damn.
Let's how about we just pour over this for a moment and you can like reflect.
Hey everyone, get into the comments, hash it out.
Ladies, what are your thoughts? Open it up to all the girlies.
I was gonna say more like the sad part, like what's more female experience than getting cosmetic surgery?
Yeah, is this a moment of solidarity?
It's a moment of solidarity because society will just judge you.
Yeah,
you went into you died during cosmetic surgery. Yeah. Moment of solidarity.
I will never know what it's like for a woman to get a BBL, so I have to do the next best thing.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah, I was trying to think of big, beautiful, and then a word for penis with L, but I'm struggling.
Beautiful log.
There you go. Thank you. This is why we had Séamus on. So he dies March 8th. However, conspiracy, X-Files music plays. He was due in a Belgian court for tax evasion on March 14th. So, like, he got out of that through dying.
I mean,
I feel like faking your death by claiming that your penis was so small that you needed to get surgery and you died during it, I feel like is one of the worst ways to fake your death.
Or is it the perfect crime? Like, fake your death with the most embarrassing death so no one thinks you made it up.
No one will dare investigate it.
Yeah.
That's a remarkable sacrifice.
Salute.
He's on a South Pacific island somewhere with just the world's largest diamond.
He's just back in Israel.
Anyway,
he's one of these people that then have appeared now in my like Instagram Reels feed of just like, I moved here from this place. It's horrible, but I'm in Israel. Have you not gotten those?
No? What kind of things do you get on your Reels?
I get a bunch of Americans who move to Israel because they're doing the whole thing because they're getting like
now?
Yeah, now they're moving. They're like, I moved. Then they're just like saying, there's like, my life was so much better in the U.S. I had all this. I had a bigger house. I had 2 cars. I liked my life better, but I'm in Israel now. And I'm just like, what? Like, this is the worst Hasbro I've ever seen in my life.
Jesus Christ.
And everyone in the comments just says, everyone in the comments says the exact same thing. They're like, yeah, but you're in Israel. It's like all these like weirdo Zionists. And then of course, like they like, filter out and delete all the comments that tell them, the stuff that they don't want to hear. But yeah, it's really funny.
You need to train your algorithm, Nick.
I am. I want more of that. I want to engage. I love it. I love it. Because they don't realize that they're making the like best like advertisement for why this country is so stupid. Like,
okay, maybe you don't have Boots, maybe you don't have beautiful department stores, but you have dignity in Israel. You can live without shame, and this is what you're not factoring into your equations here.
Sure, yeah. Me as
jot that down.
Yeah, very very true. Yeah, my humble near vagabond lifestyle in Berlin cannot fathom the sacrifice and struggle one must make to somehow like live in luxury and have a bomb shelter simultaneously. I don't know.
Yeah, I just had to get that into the canon.
I appreciate that.
It's perfect. I also I loved how the Jewish Chronicle also at the end of the article just copy and pastes the obituary that was put on his business's website. And that obituary does not mention the penis enlargement surgery.
I mean,
Jewish Chronicle did some gumshoe journalism.
Oh Lord! But how did you find this? It's like 6 years old. Where did you find this, Ciarán? You weird. Are you Googling penis enlargement surgery?
That's a great new section of the show. Who died from penis enlargement surgery today? And is telling the world. Yeah. But now I think we should turn to our main topic because the world is. Oh, okay. No, it's bad. It's bad at the moment. But let's talk about I wanted to talk about Turkey just a little bit mainly because an article came across my desk, quote unquote, which was that Erdogan had done a big, arresting a bunch of people, arresting a bunch of opposition, arresting a bunch of mayors and local politicians, etc. Normal stuff for Erdogan. However, what was buried in there is he also arrested an astrologer who predicted he was going to die this year.
Well, that was similar to the thing when then everyone was saying that then he had cancer and then he arrested the people who started that rumor. This isn't the first time that he's done stuff like that.
I love how the entire politics of this country is everyone believes in the secret, but they're all doing competing secrets at each other. Anyway, Nick, I'm going to let you take over because you know this part of the world a bit better than I do.
Oh, yeah, okay. I guess where to start, because it kind of really Turkey has always kind of balanced in this weird area, especially since the Russia-Ukraine war of being this arbiter. But then it feels also as well with the, I would say, unexpected collapse of the Assad regime that we saw last year. That was into 2024. Correct. Yeah. That Turkey kind of just changes itself once again in terms of becoming a global power. I guess we're in this era of what's the word? Multipolar world. Yeah. So I guess just for myself and the other listeners that then are also completely confused with this thing. How is this particularly with Syria, I guess Turkey had heavy involvement too with financing the HTS and stuff like that. But how has this kind of changed the role that we've seen Turkey and also Israel in this power vacuum change of power that we see that then happened last year? If you could possibly give us a little bit of background information of how this fits in, because it is really complex and we haven't talked about Syria all too much, but it really feels that there's been a massive change of wind recently of now this power move that Turkey has been able to make has kind of really allowed this new era of negotiation that then we're kind of seeing within a country that then is quite erratic, it seems in terms of their foreign policy.
You're talking about the different influence games,
sure, yeah.
Turkey and Israel, in Syria.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and we can take them individually because I know that their goals are severely different. But let's start with Turkey, and then we can then talk about Israel. I know it's a lot to kind of bring into a transition of talking about from penis enlargements to geopolitics.
Look, that's just the way of the world. I accept it. Don't worry about it. I think what has happened in Syria over the past few months has been, I mean, Turkey's greatest windfall that it's probably ever gotten in the past like 20 some years. All of its investments with the Syrian opposition paid off. It was able to successfully maneuver for influence with the new Jolani presidency, which is a term that I find myself very confused by saying, even though it's a very real thing now. Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, a former al-Qaeda leader, is now the president of Syria, the official president of Syria. Now he can say that, maybe he wants different, all these different bases in Syria. There might be a defense pact between Syria and Turkey. Essentially, laying down tracks so that all these Syrian refugees that are affecting Turkish politics can be sent back to their home country by force, if necessary. Because hundreds of thousands have already returned already, but there are still others who are saying that Syria is not a stable state at the moment for obvious reasons. In addition, because Trump is now in power, the Kurds, they were never a reliable, the United States was never a reliable ally for the Kurds to begin with, but now they're really not a reliable ally. This is not a priority for the United States whatsoever. They're alone in that respect. Assad is gone, and whatever guarantees he could have possibly made to the Kurds is obviously gone with it. They're very lonely in this respect. So PKK doesn't have a lot of options. SDF doesn't have a lot of options. And Turkey is taking advantage of that by essentially forcing this ceasefire upon the PKK. Because I know you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, we can talk about that a bit later as well too. But the thing that then I found particularly interesting within all this is that I guess we can talk about then the second part of this too, of kind of the local relations of then Israel also then had a ground offensive immediately following this change in Assad falling and trying to reclaim the Golan Heights and such. So how is then there has there been then I guess a coordination too from Turkey and Israel? There's always this thing with Erdogan talking, very much we support Palestine in words, but Turkey's quite a large energy partner to Israel. I think that's still the case. And militarily, it seems like Israel's benefiting quite a lot from, Turkey's moves that they've been making in Syria. I mean, you mentioned that then a lot of it was kind of these gambles that just kind of ended up, kind of coming at the right place at the right time. But it does seem a bit dare I say, suspicious. I mean, maybe it is just that Israel's taking the incentive to do, okay, well, it's weak, but what is this kind of relation between these two countries, if any?
I don't think there was any coordination between the Israeli invasion and the Turkish influence operations that are happening right now. I mean, Israel, for all of the kayfabe that's going on, they are still threatened by Turkish influence. They're trying to jockey to make sure the Turkish influence that is being expanded right now in Syria is minimized. They don't want a defense pact. They don't want more bases that they're going to have to deal with that are going to impede the quote-unquote demilitarization of southern Syria that they now want. Going all the way up to the gates of Damascus, everything south of Damascus, they don't want the new Syrian army, the new Syrian government to be involved with. I hate using the term they need each other in a lot of respects, because I think it's a bit of an oversimplification. It then results in these arguments about how Hamas and Israel need each other, Hezbollah and Israel need each other. That's nonsense. But in Israel and Turkey's terms, this is a battle that, for the most part right now, takes place entirely in rhetoric. Israel can point to this big, bad Muslim country in the Middle East that holds a lot of power, that holds a lot of influence, and is always talking about combating Israel at some point. It can point to that state's malign influence. And Turkey can use Israel and say, well, we're going to go in. You know, maybe one day we'll decide we're going to fucking blow everything up. We're gonna just like we invaded Armenia, maybe we'll invade Israel one day. It's a very, like, on that level, it's a very stupid game that sort of continues and continues and continues and has no real endpoint. They say they're going to stop, imports from Israel. That doesn't really happen. Not that there was a big market to begin with. They still continue their economic relationship, still a diplomatic relationship. There are thousands of times in which Turkey cut off all relations with Israel, and it never did it. It's a for now, this is sort of a nonsense conflict for now, I would say.
There's like two things that I find very interesting. Just to add background to this, I remember years ago the panic that Israel happened because so many old Israelis were watching Turkish soap operas. There was like this kind of like weird soft power moral panic about that. But more concretely, more recently, I saw that Israel was, this is me half remembering a headline, so correct me if I'm wrong. I saw that they were like advocating for Russia to keep their military bases in Syria.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the angle? Do they like them as a mediator? Is it, or
they're getting closer with Russia as of late. It's a very strange thing to say, and I don't want to say this because it's a bit early, but with how not unreliable, but how unpredictable Trump is with Israel. First forcing the ceasefire deal through, and then talking directly with Hamas is doing right now. I think there is somewhat of a perception that Putin might be more reliable as like a mediator, as like an ally that you can rely on, but that's a much different thing you have to invest in. And also, Russian influence obviously displaces Turkish influence. If there are multiple different, this is the same thing that happened during the Syrian civil war. If you have multiple different foreign military bases in that country, that displaces the other influence operations that they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, what is beneficial for Israel is if there is not just American and Turkish military bases, but if Russia is able to retain the bases it has in Latakia, for instance, and other places that it has. They're trying to play people against each other. Same thing as they've been doing since the inception of the state.
Yeah, fair. And I have also seen that like Turkey is now getting a bit more like I don't know what the right word is, but they're just being a bit more standoffish to Russia that they were. Now they seem to be like, it's all rhetoric, I guess, kind of saying like, oh, we're going to side more with Ukraine, probably because I guess also probably in the background of this is their influence games in Syria. The Russians are retreating, we can kind of take over is probably, I'm assuming, a part of it. But yeah, I find that very funny, just because Turk Vision is never coming back.
That's all you care about?
Turk.
Turkovision? Is that Eurovision for Turkey?
It's Eurovision for ethnic Turks and Turkic people, which basically relies on Russia and Turkey getting along, because that's where most of those two people are. Two countries those people are in. It stopped when Turkey accidentally downed that Russian jet.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It is an insight into geopolitics.
The implications of shooting down a Su-35 is no more Turk vision.
My wanky foreign policy article called Turk Vision's Children, or something like that, about like power games in Syria. Anyway, I had nowhere really to lead on from that. I'm going to turn back to this.
I think just to establish for the listener, why so much discussion is about just like purely rhetoric, like solely dealing in rhetoric, pretending that you're like playing all sides at once, but never actually doing anything like terribly significant, unless it's against a country that can do nothing about it, like Syria, because they invaded Syria multiple times. Like, that is what has guaranteed Erdogan's longevity. Is not doing anything particularly crazy or unsafe or risky. Like, you can support invasions of Armenia. They can't do anything about it. You can support invasions of Syria. They can't do anything about it. But yeah, they're not bombing Israel. They're not going to be some sort of NATO guarantor for Ukraine. If they attack Turkish troops, they're going to, I don't know, nuke Russia. They're not going to do that. Like, Erdogan has been in power for 20-some years, maybe even more than that, for a reason. Like, the same reason that the Iranian government has been in power for as long as it has been. It plays it safe in the arenas that it is able to play it safe. And it sticks to that.
Yeah. I think too, as well, like it's a, I wanted to ask about, as you mentioned the refugees that Turkey is holding, that has also been, quite an eyesore for Europe. That's why Germany has had this like kind of special relationship with Turkey, particularly to keep, refugees out of Europe. Europe wants to pretend that it's this big, humanitarian help to the world. But I guess before getting to that, has this then been like, how is, if any, I mean, it may also just be too early to kind of talk on this, like the US's retreat of power that you've mentioned, and Europe trying to like reposition itself as a, kind of this like defense force that it probably can't actually do. What if like, how has then Turkey been kind of viewing themselves as, because they are kind of like a rogue NATO member that is all just rhetoric of being a rogue NATO member. And they do benefit actually quite heavily from then this phase of kind of everything up in the air, but they've actually remained quite solid under the Erdogan regime. And has there been a reaction, I guess, to then these to the rhetoric coming out of Europe and stuff like that, or is it simply too early to like make an assessment on that? Because this has all been like the last week, of course.
I think it's too early. I haven't really seen much out of the Turkish political world to indicate much of a response, at least from what I have seen. Again, it holds so much more power by, like I said before, playing both sides of this equation. The power that it holds is in its refugee population, how it can work against European influence that way. And like Turkish accession to the EU has been dead for decades at this point, maybe as long as I've been alive, honestly. It gains, I don't know, like speaking only personally, I don't know what it could gain from coming out strongly on either side of that equation, because Europe is never going to accept it, especially under Erdogan's current administration. And it's not like it can decouple from it entirely either and pretend that, this whole integrated European army project for further EU federalization is like the worst thing since sliced bread. It doesn't have big options that it can go toward in that respect.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in that myself. I understand that it's too early to tell with any of this. I'm trying at the moment to just like map out my ideas of like how Europe could try and square this circle, how they're going to fuck it up, all the different ways they could fuck it up. I'm very interested in all of that, but like Turkey, I think is probably like, correct me if I'm wrong, is probably just going to keep doing the whole thing of like, we're the bridge between these. We're like, we're not European, we're not Asian, we're Eurasian is like something I commonly hear from like particularly people from Istanbul. Because I guess that's where those two places meet. That's
true.
Yeah, crazy fact, Ciarán.
It's crazy fact, dad facts, geography. Hey, I am very interested in like what seems like Erdogan giving up one of the bargaining chips he had over Europe, which was controlling the Syrian refugee population from entering Europe. And then constantly dangling that over the EU's head. Because Nick alluded to it, but the reaction to like the change in government in Syria,
immediate, like, all right, send them back. Like Europe,
Austria paused,
immediate
Austria
calls
paused
for
all refugee applications. They were even the ones that were ongoing. I think you had to be like in the country for 6 years to be safe. By like Austrian government standards, it was nuts. And like that was before it was even like settled on who was like the leader of Syria. Now they were just kind of like, yeah, it's safe. Whoever's there instead, safe. Send him back. But that was always like Erdogan's bargaining chip, right? Like, is he just happy to give that up? Is he just relying that refugees from other parts of the world will always make him have like this power regardless of what's happening in Syria?
I mean, the Syrian refugee issue has always been like a hot coal in Erdogan's hand. Like, he can throw it at the Europeans, but he's still holding this coal that is burning him. Like, Lukashenko, when he sends migrants to the border in order to fuck things up, like, he has control over when the refugees come in, how many there are. It's not like a huge deal if he sends in like 1,000 people and then sends them out. It's not Belarus's problem.
Yeah.
But Turkey has hundreds of thousands of Syrians, if not more. I don't know what the current statistics are right now. And because the Syrians have been there for years and years and years, it, just like in everywhere else in Europe, they became a huge problem in politics. Anti-Syrian racism abounds. Pretty much every politician except the AK Party, every party except the AK Party, which Erdogan is a part of, is talking about just sending them back immediately. And Erdogan got points whenever they invaded Syria and ethnically cleansed Kurds, because then they could show that they are building new communities for the Syrians, for the Syrian refugees to then go to. They're no longer Turkey's problem, they're Syria's problem, even though they're controlling all the territory and all this and that. I imagine he still wants to hold on to some of it, but the level of how many refugees are in Turkey right now, it is an active political danger to him. It is still a major one, and this can't continue in perpetuity. Like, he'll go through like ebbing and flowing of like, he's really pro-Syrian refugee one time, and then he's like, they're talking about expelling all these different Syrians the next time. It's not something that he can keep up consistently.
Yeah, fair.
I think that, I mean, because you mentioned then particularly I think the one that is in most recent memory, even though it's quite some time ago, I guess, of the Afrin offensive that Turkey had, where you mentioned where they did do pretty much ethnic cleansing in Kurdish regions of Syria. The most recent news, I guess, of Abdullah Öcalan coming out and offering then this, olive branch of not only that the PKK to, lay down their arms, but to dissolve themselves, I guess comes at quite a surprise. You mentioned the sense that Turkey is kind of holding all the chips in their hand, but I guess what does then, I guess the first question is Erdogan then to be trusted in this, because he then did also, after that was announced, still bombed northern Syria the next day, if I'm not mistaken. And what does then this mean for then the overarching project of, you mentioned the SDF, which is the YPG and the YPJ. So what the Rojava thing is, what does that kind of how is that supposed to, I guess, be taken in this moment? Because it seems, at least from my opinion of kind of understanding this of what I do of this region and of Erdogan's rhetoric towards the Kurds and the military expansionism that then he's been doing, whether it not be actual land grabs, but theoretical ones, changing the names of everything in northern Syria to Turkish names, making the supposed room for the refugees. It seems a bit odd. It doesn't seem, I don't find him to be a very trustworthy partner when it comes to the sense of Kurdish dealings. But,
it's, when I saw what Öcalan had said, in regards to like why he was telling the PKK to achieve a ceasefire now. In that Erdogan had made enough like liberalizing reforms toward the Kurds that they had achieved their goals as the PKK.
Okay.
Interesting.
Like, I just, all right, sure.
They're like the PKK too are in like Iraq at the moment as well. They're like technically like in exile from even like Syria. So that's where it even came odder to me, is that then like because Erdogan kept throwing when the SDF was getting support from the United States, he would keep going and be like, you were supporting the PKK, they have connections, this and that and that, and the US would just like keep renaming things to like the PYD and this and that, and then he'd be like, then Erdogan would come back and be like, you just renamed it, they're still the PKK. And yeah, so I mean, you have like, that's where it feels so weird of the sense of like, oh yeah, everything's done, by the way, we've been in exile in Iraq. It's chill though.
No, like all of this, there was all this finagling to continue the project that the PKK was on, trying to secure its survival, and then just all of a sudden, okay, I know that technically in the PKK ceasefire, when they announced a ceasefire, they still put the ball in Erdogan's court to, accede by it, to assure its success. But they're really, I feel like I've sounded pessimistic for the past like 2 years of my life, but there really isn't a lot that either the PKK or the SDF or any of the Kurdish forces in Syria, Iraq, or Turkey can really do about it. Like right now, like the Rojava project, what the SDF is doing might be still able to survive a few moments more because, I mean, right now the Syrian government is looks like it's disintegrating again. With an insurgency that is building on the coast of the country. Their focus is going to be pulled that way. But they're not going to accept autonomy from the SDF. They're not going to do that. Whatever possibilities ever some that existed under Assad, that's gone. They're not going to accept... They've said publicly they're not going to accept the SDF being a separate force whatsoever. They're talking about some sort of reintegration. Öcalan has been on that island prison for decades and decades. There's no hope for him getting out unless he does this. He's probably still not going to be let out. There's not a lot of options here there's not a lot of cards here that the PKK or the YPG can play anymore. Other than to just kind of like hope that they can ride this out. At least that's what I can see. That's from my perspective.
Would there have been just a quick question. Do you think there would have been a fear amongst like PKK that, with all of these like huge windfalls for Turkey, that Turkey just suddenly in this moment starts feeling themselves and they just start storming into like Turkish Kurdistan being like, well, we got our goals in Syria. What's to stop us here? Kind of like, was this kind of like possibly a means of just stopping that before it happens even?
I think it's too early to speak about whether or not they do another like sweeping operation through Turkish Kurdistan like they did several years ago. I think what's most like still very much on the table is another Turkish invasion of northern Syria.
Yeah, okay.
Like clearing the safe zone, the full safe zone that Erdogan had outlined years ago during the Efrin operation, the Tel Aviv operation. Like the whole border that the SDF holds would come under Turkish control. That's a card that they could still play and probably will play at some point if the SDF decides at some other point that they're not going to submit to reintegration. Maybe. I think it has more cards to play in Syria, I think, is the main point of it.
Right.
You mentioned as well too I forget Assad. I guess whatever the proper wording for it is, kind of like this like mutual agreement that the SDF and Assad had, and that's like preserving then the longevity of whatever, whether it be months or however long that then the Rojava project has. But what is then like, because you've also mentioned too that Syria, although under like a new leadership, is still then very kind of fragmented. We haven't really talked about then the scenario, then kind of what that looks like on the ground. Like you see, like in the sense this, like, the Western media talking about this. Okay, yeah, we had regime change. This is the new guy, more or less, like you mentioned, a former Al-Qaeda guy. But what is then like, what are the other regions of this country kind of look like at the moment of like the instabilities that then are kind of ahead of us? I don't think, like, I have not read much about in the last few months. It just feels like it's like, okay, regime change, cool, here we are. Always works. Here we are, new Syria. And it seems like that's also, as you mentioned, like crumbling.
I mean, not to Nick's fault or anything, but the news, unless you're like really paying attention, the news is just like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Like,
yeah, there was a massive FT piece about the new president of Syria.
The UK politics podcast, The Rest is Politics, went to Syria.
God.
Went to Syria and interviewed him.
Hell
Roy
yeah.
Stewart.
Yeah.
Roy Stewart. That fucking, I hate him.
He's so weird.
Ever since the Conservative Party leadership election that one time that he was in, I've hated that smarmy prick.
Yeah.
Oh God. All right. No, but like he was literally that. If I could just go in a brief thing about Roy Stewart. This motherfucker, he was literally a deputy governor during the Iraqi occupation. He was a fucking colonial viceroy, essentially, of a administration of Iraq, which included very few Iraqis, almost exclusively Western politicians. And I mean, I didn't like the Iraqi occupation. Many people didn't. But the goal of that occupation, after very quickly at a certain point, was to fight Al-Qaeda, and specifically to fight the Islamic State of Iraq, which Al-Qaeda Iraq, which Jolani was a leader within.
Mm.
He was they were fighting each other, and now he's on their fucking podcast.
Yeah,
and like it's not a concern to any of them. And then he's on the podcast like, yo, yeah, I was in Al-Qaeda because I wanted to advance my career.
That was the wildest shit I've ever seen in my life. You
are a fucking liar.
I love the idea of him being on the podcast of like, many years back I was in Al-Qaeda. You were there. You remember.
Like if you I need this. We all go through political changes throughout our entire life. Like I was a libertarian when I was in middle school. It happens.
Yeah,
we all had a Al-Qaeda period.
Yeah, we all had, yeah.
It's different when you are not only in Al-Qaeda, which is one thing.
Yeah,
like you have that option, but like you're a leader in Mosul. in the Islamic State of Iraq, which is not a position you get easily.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had to grind for this view. Don't you get it?
Isn't Rory Stewart the guy that took selfies with like citizens and he was like smiling with the white people, and then he took a selfie with a black kid and was like frowning or looking scared?
No, he's just like, I don't know if this will communicate well over the camera, but he was just like,
very straight face. Yeah.
No, I like right now. No, because what you're saying about the Western media is fully true. There's no once Jolani, who is now going by his real name Ahmed al-Shara'a, once he came to power, he put on airs that he was like the obvious intent was that he is a professional, civilized leader. Like he's not just wearing like a suit in the Iranian style. He's got like a tie. He speaks very softly. He's talking about constitutions and elections. Like he's not the Al-Qaeda boogeyman that you might have been anticipating, even though he's literally an Al-Qaeda.
If only we could have given the Mujahideen, suits and ties.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's amazing what they are willing to forgive.
It's so
if you just dress like how they do, they will give you everything. Like fucking like there were still like imprints of his actual ideology, which he was kind of like
he wouldn't stop taking pictures like this with his finger up.
like he'll put on the suit. He'll put on the suit, and he'll like outside of interviews with people he'll still put on the suit, but then he'll start talking about like how Syria is not a nation of people who cry and beat their chests, which is explicitly a reference to Shia Muslims. And then he'll start talking about like how the Iranians invaded Syria to like avenge 1,400-year-old martyrs, like all this stuff. It's still in there.
Yeah,
it's still in there, even if he doesn't want to explicitly talk about it because he knows it's bad for PR. And then he has other people in his administration, like the justice minister, talking about how, oh no, look, we will never impose Sharia law in Syria. The people of Syria will simply ask for it because they're 90% Muslim. And again, he's in a suit.
Yeah.
He looks professional. And then right after the interview comes out, video reemerges of him in Idlib overseeing public executions with pistols of women who are accused of prostitution. Like, it's an intentional PR offensive.
There is too.
And then one, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say just quickly of like, there is this weird kind of like facade that always kind of dropped, particularly as well. I mean, because we are talking about Turkey, of just like magically Turkey working with ISIS, and everyone just kind of forgot about that one. We're like, they're like, oh, yeah, we're coordinating, oh, oops, well, we have this, this thing, it's called the Free Syrian Army. It's ours though. Don't ask like where like a lot of these members are coming from, and we're switching.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God, dude. Like, I remember the Syrian National Army.
Which one?
one of the strangest amalgamations of people. Like they did the same thing, PR offensive.
Yeah,
where they do videos of how these people are professional. They like march in line, got all these new uniforms and weapons, and then as soon as they re-enter Syria from Turkey, they start doing targeted assassinations of female politicians. They start looting. They're talking in like very religiously messianic terms about who they're going to go fight. And like I followed like fighters from that group on Twitter, and you would have like that sheen over everything, their professional army. And then you would occasionally see, I remember once, like there was incest porn subtitled in Arabic that was retweeted by a commander in one of the forces. Like, these people are just browsing pornography while they're invading another country. And
no. He was trying to figure out, how do you get the stepsister out of the washing machine? It's an easy question.
It was subtitled in Arabic, so maybe it'll help him. I don't know. It was a very odd people. And then after the war, like the commanders would like retweet stuff about the IDF operations against Hezbollah and how much they fucking loved it. Like, very odd people. But right now, as to what you were saying, Ciarán, about like the current provincial map, as it were. Despite the fact that the new Syrian state is trying to reintegrate all these different forces, talking about how all of the other forces have been like dissolved into the new Ministry of Defense. Right now, the Syrian National Army still has control over massive swathes of the north. A lot of cities were handed over. They willingly handed over control to HDS and the new Ministry of Defense, but the U.S. military and the Syrian Free Army still holds an outpost over the border, which there's no sign they're going to hand that over. Just they control a border crossing. a major border crossing. There are people in the south. There are Free Syrian Army units in the south which still have not handed over their weapons. In Latakia and Tartus, there is an insurgency that is currently building that is seems to be led by former Assad military commanders, and Uyghurs Lamas are being sent out in order to quell it. And it appears that there have been like massacres of Alawites since then, since that insurgency started. And in the Deep South, the Israeli invasion is like slowly still building, taking like town by town, village by village in a very slow way. But it seems like it may explode if the new the Sueda Military Council in the South might decide that it needs more support from Israel, and Israel is going to be very much willing to supply it. It's looking like it is fragmenting very quickly between multiple different sides, that the new Syrian state is both unwilling to actually deal with in terms of Israel and is going to be incapable of dealing with in terms of like a pro-Assad insurgency or an Assad loyalist insurgency. It's not good. It's really not good.
Hey, remember when we were talking about that Israeli-Belgian billionaire guy?
Yeah.
Joyous times.
I also, I mean, just like one thing that then kind of crossed my mind too of because the Israeli offensive that then kind of drew in there, and also this the regime change that then happened during the ceasefire that then Israel was having with Hezbollah. Did that play into it at all? Because Hezbollah was controlling like a good portion of Syria for they've been instrumental within assisting Assad. They are one of the very few allies, I guess, trustworthy allies that he had, because Russia came in with like pretty much Wagner, dropped them at the when this happened. I wonder why. Russia has its own stuff to deal with too. And I mean, the timing seemed very perfect, of that as well. I guess this is just an aspect that I kind of just like forgot to ask about. But
no, I mean, you're completely right. I mean, the offensive that eventually toppled Assad started like literally the day after the ceasefire.
it was 2 weeks.
The day after. Yeah. Like, I think, admittedly speculative, but I think they wanted to wait until they could no longer be accused of fighting a group that was fighting Israel. I think that was probably too worse optics.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, look, in 2013, when Hezbollah initially intervened, they had immense political capital that they could spend on an intervention. What Nasrallah had said at the time was that Syria was so critical to the fight for Palestine that if Syria falls, Palestine falls. That was what he said verbatim. And over the course of the intervention, I mean, Hezbollah lost a lot of credit that it had before. It was seen by a lot of people as playing into internal conflicts that it shouldn't have been focusing on. Like, it should have been focusing squarely on Israel.
It's become quite a rift, actually, here in Berlin within like the Palestine movement, especially, just of something that then I've noticed of people who are from Syria who are then very involved in the Palestine movement. And with the Lebanon stuff, they're very like, I mean, like they're not like, pro-Israel in this regard, but they're very skeptical of, not even just skeptical, they just hate Hezbollah. And that, of course, then comes from this relation, of course, too, from Hezbollah and the Assad regime.
And also, like, in Lebanon itself, you'll meet a lot of people who are very supportive of Hezbollah when they fight Israel.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the subject of Syria, they're very critical.
Yeah.
Like, this intervention should have never happened. And when they eventually fought Israel again last year, once that was over, they had no political capital to expend on another intervention in Syria. that not only did they have no military power that they were going to expend on that, like what's the plan here? You're going to go and say, hey, well, guys, new front. We're gonna go try and stop this.
Israel kind of feels. I don't know what you're talking about.
Works.
Israel feels like doing this every what they have Gaza. They have the north. Now they have
7 fronts.
Yeah,
they have 7 fronts in front. They got 7 fronts in the Resurrection War.
I like the response to like Israel opening the fronts, constant fronts, is just the like Breaking Bad meme of they can't keep getting away with this. Like it's just like every time in history, military leaders are punished for opening other fronts, except for these fuckers.
God, it's no, they like Hezbollah was really in a bad spot, and it just kind of had to. I mean, its central military leadership had been killed very early on in the war. It had a new Secretary General, Naim Qassem, who, I mean, in addition to being new at the job, this is maybe personal conjecture, but he does not hold the same sort of like sway over the populace as Nasrallah did. He was the second choice to be successor to Nasrallah. They selected another person, Hashem Safiuddin, and then Hashem Safiuddin was killed very shortly after his election. So now it just had to be Qassem. And there was no situation in which anything else was going to happen. So they had to just essentially watch Syria fall to the opposition. And once that happened, I mean, Hezbollah is in a really bad spot generally. Their supply lines were cut. The new Syrian government has been focusing a lot on stopping weapons smuggling. And there seems to be a really bad situation for Hezbollah in which they no longer can supply heavy weapons through Syria. They're under intense scrutiny at the airport. I mean, there was a situation in which an Iranian plane, which was accused, quote unquote, of smuggling cash, was prevented from landing at the Beirut airport by Israel from Iran. They just said you couldn't land there. Like, even if that was a lie, that's still a situation in which Israel now has an immense amount of control over what can come into Lebanon and not. In addition to the new Syrian government saying you obviously can't transfer weapons through here. Not great for them. I'll just say that much. Sum it up. Not great.
I guess then, just to kind of go back and maybe round out the discussion. I mean, we started talking about Turkey, and just, I guess, a point of curiosity for me then is that then you have then with Syria more or less coming under friendly control, or, in some cases direct, control. The HTS was heavily funded by Turkey. They are kind of forming the new government, this and that and that. It's not like it's obviously not like an Azerbaijan situation where it is like a true satellite state of Turkey. But what are then, I guess, like, plan, like, if there are any that then are like being kind of discussed within like Turkey, like the kind of like expansion, then not just of influence, but just of like what they can gain with then having this kind of large area that then was this kind of, eyesore for the West, of that then their Syria kind of was just plopped right in the middle of the map. It kind of soured relations in the area for a lot of countries being pro-West or pro-US, and this one thing, and connected to Iran is not allowing for kind of this connectivity between the Arabian Peninsula and Iraq and stuff like that. Does Turkey have some vision of also kind of like these kind of like normalizing the relations throughout the I guess pretty much every country in that region, right? They have pretty good relations with they have decent relations with Lebanon, no? And, the only one that then I guess is a bothersome one for them is Iran, but not as much, I would say, as like maybe like other Western powers. So how does this kind of play into like, kind of like the economic
Are they going to try to become like an Abraham Accords?
Yeah. It allows them to kind of put themselves. I mean, Turkey has a lot also to kind of like offer like they're a huge supplier of stuff to Israel, a country that then they forget about. Like, how does this kind of like broaden their horizons in that sense?
I mean, admittedly, it's speculative, but I imagine increasing their status as a mediator, brokering like new pipelines, new economic opportunities in Syria will be something that they're going to want to pursue. Having Syria, the whole of Syria, theoretically, the whole of Syria, open to them in that respect, is an immense victory to them. Again, like you said, Syria is not going to be like Azerbaijan. It can't be a satellite state that its entire foreign policy is going to be controlled by, even if there's a defense pact, even if there's more Turkish military bases inside the country. But Turkey has invested so much in Syria already that it is going to have priority over future investments that I think other countries won't. But admittedly, even as I say that, like, Syria is not in a stable enough position right now.
Yeah.
Despite all that it portrays to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
To talk about like major economic plans.
Yeah.
I mean, when the Assad regime fell, when Assad fled, the major economic plans that they were talking about, first and foremost, before anything else, was mass privatization. And that might be somewhere where Turkey and Turkish companies can come in, but that privatization still hasn't happened yet in a real major sense. So that groundwork still needs to be laid before that discussion can take place.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to simply add about then the kind of going back to the thing of Turkish possible economic opportunity is that then it does seem it could be like fitting, I guess, in the sense that Turkey is, I mean, they've been in a constant economic crisis for what seems like to be like a decade now. And they're like ways of trying to always like, circumvent that was always just trying to like seek investment from like the UAE with these like weird. Go on, Ciarán. What are you gonna say?
Please. Yeah,
they still haven't found his son-in-law, right?
No,
he's
he's still disappeared. Yeah, Erdogan's son-in-law, who was the
wait. His son-in-law? What's happening with his son-in-law?
He was the head of the central bank.
And then the inflation got out of control, and he went to the lamb. And the last time he was seen was in a Turkish restaurant in London.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We talked about that.
Yeah, but it has been like, I mean, Turkey is kind of like they've done these like weird projects to kind of attract all this investment from pretty much like the UAE predominantly, even like Getir, like the delivery company in Germany, I guess, Turkish company has been like. Has been kept afloat by like one single like Emirati investor, like there is like this thing that's been quite unsuccessful for them too at the same time. So it does seem that like Turkey is probably like hedging their bets of like, oh, like, yeah, you're right. Like what the thing that you talked about, like the possibility then of these like possible economic reforms, Turkey could maybe also like direct the national attention to that and be like, see, here's how we're going to like save our economy. It's not foreign to the idea of, I mean, like doing what the US did in Iraq, for example, just like,
No, I think two things just to like be made clear here for people who are, I guess, taking all this to Western media. One, comparing this to what the U.S. did in Iraq, I think is very, very apt. The privatization that is currently envisioned in Syria by the new government, I mean, it's complete. It's looking like it's going to be just complete. All of it is just focused on getting revenue for the state now, no matter what. And it gets to the point where Jolani's father, who is not an Islamist, is a Syrian left-winger, was posting, I want to say on Facebook, about how his son was wrong to pursue privatization. Like, it's to the extent where his father can't claim him. That's the extent to which
Finally, Syria has their own Kamala Harris.
So it's like a chain of economic idiocy in which you've got Syria pursuing this massive privatization with no real clear end goal. The one state which is poised to invest the most also not having a great sense of economic strength. And then on top of the people funding that are the UAE, who, despite popular perception, are terrible at foreign policy.
Oh, the worst.
And deciding like what's a stable bet. Like I do think about this like sometimes, like the common perception of the UAE is that these are the shrewdest businessmen. They're not talking about emotion. They're not talking about ideology. They just care about like what's the most stable option for this crazy place we call the Middle East. And then like what do? They bet on the Abraham Accords, and it becomes the most disastrous foreign policy decision of the past like 20 years. It assists in the detonation of the Middle East, essentially. They invest all this money into first backing the Syrian rebels and then backing Assad when that turns out to be a bad bet. And then, oops, Assad's gone, so all that investment meant fucking nothing. And also all the groups that we backed have no say in the new Syrian government, so it doesn't even fucking matter. They put in all their fucking bets on supporting the Saudi-led intervention in Yemen, and then the Houthis will come out of that stronger. All idiots, all the way down.
We love it.
It's these are the fucking people who are deciding the fate of the entire region. And yeah, it's great. I have no complaints.
Yeah, but they have money, and don't worry about it.
They do.
They got lots of it. They have more money than God, you know?
Who cares what they're doing with it? No. I don't care that there's an unfinished tower in Dubai called the Pentominium.
No.
That stopped getting built during the 2009 financial crisis. Who cares? That isn't an indicative of anything.
Why does this major, supposedly international city of Dubai need a sewage system? We have the shit trucks. You can wake up really early and watch the shit trucks leave the city. It's wonderful. Bring the kids.
This is the kind of forward thinking that we need in Damascus right now.
Yeah,
and I'm thankful that we have a president right now who is willing to go to Dubai with a tie that is the flag of the UAE, and he's going to get this done. That's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. Well, with that resounding, siren of support for the new government of Syria, Séamus, thank you so much for coming on, explaining all of this to us. Because, God, the coverage out of the publications I do read has been shocking, terrible. So, where can people get more of your wonderful writing?
They can go on Séamus-Malekafzali.com. They can also be on the lookout for a piece that I have coming out in Parapraxis magazine. Yeah.
Hell yeah. We'll have links to all of that, as well as Twitter. You still using Twitter to post?
Yes, I am still on Twitter.
Excellent, yeah. So we made the jump to Blue Sky, the Everything app. So I just forget where people are sometimes. We'll have links to all of that in the show notes. Do check it out. It is worth reading. It is worth listening to Séamus whenever he appears on this podcast or others. Run, do not walk. And we will catch you on the bonus feed. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.